Your CLAUDE.md is too long and it is making Claude Code worse. In this video, I'm going to go over the 4 most common pain points in a CLAUDE.md, and I'm also going to tell you how you can change them in order to make Claude Code both cheaper and better. So let's get into it. Alright, the first part. Why does it even matter to have a long CLAUDE.md? Isn't it just better to have more instructions? Well, actually no. You see, here's the thing. During a Claude session, Claude Code can manage 150 to 200 instructions. Now, what is an instruction? An instruction is, for example, to never do this, or always do this, or try to do this. That would be 3 instructions. So every time you tell it to use this, or do this, or never do this, that's an instruction. And the thing is, Claude can only manage, like I said, 150 to 200 instructions per session. And Claude Code already has a built-in system prompt that covers 50 instructions. Now this means you actually only have about 100 to 150 instructions to run. Now, if you have a CLAUDE.md that's over 100 lines of code, it is probably going to be 100 to 200, 250 instructions. Now, what does this mean? Does this mean that Claude will focus on the first 80 instructions and then just leave the other ones out? No. This means Claude will basically kind of half-ass it. So he will, if you have, for example, 250 instructions for everything, then Claude will not take everything into consideration because it can only follow 150 instructions or 200 instructions. So that means it will basically do all the instructions, but he will follow them maybe the 50, 60, 70%. So he won't actually be following them to 100%, which means we won't actually be following them to 100%, which will decrease the efficiency of Claude, because that means Claude isn't running the way you want it to, because you're using the instructions because you want it to run in a certain way. So that's the whole reason about why you don't want to have a long CLAUDE.md. Alright, second point, CLAUDE.md, even though it seems like it's this kind of master plan, which it actually is, I mean, it's the highest kind of system prompt that you have to Claude, unless if you think about Claude Code's original system prompt. But CLAUDE.md is actually advisory, which means it actually only listens to it about 80%. So when you're doing something, it actually only covers about 80% of what the CLAUDE.md actually tells. So if you actually want something to be 100% or 100% follow the instructions, then you should use skills or hooks. I can dive deeper into what skills or hooks or rules are in future videos, but for now I'm just going to mention them. But the thing is, it's just important for you to know that CLAUDE.md is actually advisory, and it only follows it, and Claude only follows it up to about 80%. Alright, number 3. Claude actually has 3 different tiers for a CLAUDE.md, or for a kind of system prompt or master prompt. So you first have the global global CLAUDE.md, which basically is that's the master plan. That's the one that covers all of your projects, all of your folders, everything. So that's going to be your /claude.md file. And then you can also have project CLAUDE.mds. So you can have a different CLAUDE.md for different projects. And this is great. I use this for all of my projects because that means my CLAUDE.md, like my master, my global file, doesn't have to be that long. It just have to cover basic never to do and just kind of like how I like to do things and what my role is. And then for the CLAUDE.md project files, then I get more specific and focus on details and design stuff. And last, we also have the directory kind of tools. So this is, for example, rules or other specific thing that you set up for different tasks. For example, you want to put up a simple plan to follow for different small tasks. That's the 3rd tier, and that's the lowest tier. So you have the global, which is the CLAUDE.md, that looks like this. And then you also have the project CLAUDE.md that looks like this. And then you also have the directory, which could be rules or skills, or basically these kind of lower rules for tasks or projects that you're doing. Alright, and now the 4th rule, or the 4th step, or actually step, I would like to call this a tip. Whenever you're building your CLAUDE.md or project.md or anything, you want to ask yourself this: If I were to remove this line or this text, would it become a problem? You know? Or if I would remove this, would it cause a mistake in the CLAUDE.md or in the Claude session? And if it wouldn't cause a mistake, then just delete it. The thing is, having a short CLAUDE.md also saves you context. I mean, of course, it's not going to be that much, but if you have a CLAUDE.md that's over 100 lines and you're on the Pro plan, it's going to be approximately like 1,000 to 4,000 tokens, which, you know, it can be like 2 to 3, 4, 5% of your context window, which is kind of a lot. If you can get the same experience and even better experience if you just lower it to 50 to 60, 70. My global CLAUDE.md is 46 lines, and then I have different project MDs that are maybe longer or kind of the same range. So always ask yourself, if I remove this, will there be a mistake, or will there be an error if I remove this? And if not, then you just go ahead and delete it. Alright, so a short revision now. Claude Code can only manage 150 to 200 instructions per session, and the system prompt already covers 50, so keep your CLAUDE.md short and consist. Remember, a CLAUDE.md is advisory, it only follows it to about 80%. Use hooks or skills if you want it to be 100%. There are 3 different tiers for MDs. There are the global MD, that's the master plan. You have the project MD, those are different for all of your projects. And then you have the directory ones, which are rules for different tasks or smaller things that you want to manage. And there you have it. 4 important tips to remember when you're going to build your first CLAUDE.md, or if you're already built one and you want to optimize it and make it even better so you can improve your Claude Code session. I highly recommend to do this. And if you want to have a more detailed guide on this, you can actually check out a 5 bullet point PDF that I made that covers all of this and actually a little bit more deeper into how you can build a great CLAUDE.md. You can check that out in the description below. And that's it for this video. Make sure to go watch my other videos and make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.